Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Mastering Dungeons, your favorite tabletop role-playing game news, reviews, interviews, and opinions podcast. I am back from Winter Fantasy. I'm Shawn Merwin, and also back from Winter Fantasy is that guy, Teos Abadia. Hey, Teos, how you holding up?
Good. I was invigorated by all that play. Like super nice people, fun tables. I got to play a really kind of dark, terrible, frost-covered Valakan clan cleric when I did the Grim Hollow epic and the regular adventure. I got to play the Dragonlance saga, the end of it, and see it. That was beautifully done, really fun. And I got to have a lot of experience seeing how players at the table were combining 2014 with 2024.
Yeah.
And, I'd hoped, I don't want to get into topics too soon, but what the heck? I thought I was going to get to see what it's like to play 2024 at the table, right? Like everybody doing a 2024 character, everybody playing, with those rules. And what I found was actually everybody's still doing a mishmash. Like DMs are still figuring it all out. Players, even if they had converted the character, didn't quite remember like how to do it or what to do. And so it was very interesting seeing that. So you can't yet figure out how it plays because nobody's quite there yet. Everybody's still like transitioning.
Yeah, in all the adventures I played were still written for 2014. Mm-hmm. So even if all the characters were there, the monsters were still, the plots were still, the traps, everything was still in that mode. And I found the same thing. For the Dragonlance adventures, we were playing Kender.
Yep.
Which of course are 2014 species.
Yes.
So there was that. Mm-hmm. And it was a full mess. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun too. Yeah. This is my play convention. I always get pulled into other things, but I played several games, got to run the epic in which you played, so that was fun. Got to play in and run a play test for the Greyhawk campaign coming up. So that was cool. Did some work, got some work done, so that was good. I have to tell this one story though, Teo, so bear with me.
Please.
So slots ended at 11:30, which is late. So
at night, yeah.
Mm-hmm. At night. So I go back to the hotel, and sure enough, the door is closed. So I need to use my key to get into the hotel, and I do so. And I'm walking in, and I'm going toward the elevator, and I look down, and I realize in my hand is a Starbucks gift card, which I had brought. And I'm thinking to myself, did I just get into the hotel with a Starbucks gift card? And I laughed. I told my friends, we laughed. We're like, oh, maybe we'll try it tomorrow. So the next day I'm coming back and it's again late. I'm by myself. And I say, I'm going to see if this actually happens. So I look around, no one's around. So I stand there and I'm outside the hotel with a Starbucks gift card trying to see if the door will unlock. And sure enough, it doesn't. But I then turn and I notice there's somebody standing behind me, watching me try to get into the hotel with a Starbucks gift card. And I think to myself, well, at least this person doesn't know who I am because I would look ridiculous. And he said, "Are you Shawn Merwin?" And I said, "Of course I am." And he was a listener and very, very nice and said, "Love the show." But he like casually reaches over with his card and opens it like I am an idiot who does not know the difference between a hotel key and a Starbucks gift card. So that was my one of my many interactions with our community. So I think this was a person named Jeff. Jeff, if you're listening and it was you, I really am not as dumb as I looked there. I am dumb, but not as dumb as I looked there.
At that moment, yeah, sure. That's fair. That's hilarious, though.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I want to know actually, though, whether there is some sort of like the door just opens with like any magnetic strip card or certain types or something like that, or who knows?
Well, it wasn't a Starbucks gift card. I can tell you that from experience.
Well, it was great seeing everybody there. I got to play with a bunch of folks who listened to the show and who said kind things, and it's like I'd like to say it gets old. It does not. It does not, because we put a lot of work into this, right? And people are very nice about acknowledging that too, how much work we put into the show. And so it's just really nice, and honestly keep it coming because it does help us
Yeah.
keep going. It's very nice to hear, and also to talk to other people who do great things. Like I played a Shadow Dart game with Mike Shea, and
Sure.
you kind of think like, well, if his superpower is writing books about being a good DM, but he's
Mhm.
actually crappy, that'll be fine. Like no problem. Still a
Right.
gain for the world. But he also is a great DM running Shadow Dark.
Right.
It was super fun from the opening moment when he turned on DN mode. It was this great cinematic picture of what we were up against, and super
Yeah.
fun. So.
Awesome. Awesome. And so, the listeners who came to Winter Fantasy, thank you for, telling us that you listen. And if you're out there, you can talk to us via many means, which we'll talk about at the end of the show. But we do have some questions or comments from some listeners. So let's start off with Jeff DeWitt via YouTube, who says, question for y'all. What structural issues with D&D's game loop can arise when you flip the script of the standard fantasy land on its head? For the context, I'm thinking of a DM or of a D&D campaign where the monsters have won and the world is being upended as humans experience systematic subjugation and the constraint of the law, but none of its protection. The PCs will have to use dungeons as bases, evacuate people from tyranny, and then work with those survivors to develop what the world should look like next. Awesome question. You've used the word game loop, and I want to differentiate there. Game loop, when we talk about game loop, we're generally going to be talking about the loop of gameplay from what do you do till the end of that resolution, and then the loop starts over. So I think what Jeff is talking about here is more like the structural experience of a campaign and the political and social makeup of a fantasy world. And that great question I will answer with this. Let me introduce you to Athos. Let me introduce you to Aurora. Let me introduce you to many campaigns or many campaign settings that subvert that standard medieval fantasy, starting in a point of light and going out into the darkness. This is exactly what I wanted to do with Aurora, Jeff. It is the world was made up of a system that relied on dragons. Dragons were the rulers, and their dragon kin were who made the trains run. So your boss was a kobold, right? The police force were dragonborn. Everything worked on, and all of a sudden the dragons went mad and society collapsed. And the campaign is supposed to be how do you rebuild when not only your society has collapsed, but the things that were running the society are trying to kill you now. And I hope people are playing Aurora and carrying on that sort of theme.
Yeah, and I played an Aurora game that Andrew Bashkinsky ran that was fantastic. You can see why he won DM of the Year back when. And it was great. It felt very dark, sunny in that sense of inverting the tropes and the expectations. We were going out and trying to find water, and there were entire different ways that society operates because of the fact that everything had been upended. And that was really, really cool. And what's neat is when you flip the script like this, the world is not points of light. It is darkness, and
Right.
you are just trying to exist between the cracks. Then you change the way that play happens at that story level thoroughly, right? I mean, Shadowrun even did that, right? The idea of
Yeah.
these hostile mega corporations rule the world, and everything you understand about normal modern life or future life is
Mhm.
changed, and so you operate differently. You are opposed to what civilization, if you will, is, because civilization is evil and is
Mhm.
harmful to everybody. And so everything at the story level changes the way that you choose to do things. You're not, saving the village. You are fighting the village. And that just changes
Right.
everything about it. What a monster is, what you might do as a player character, how you operate with each other, that all, the survival off the land, all of that is different, which is awesome. It's great.
Mhm.
I
So,
think
yeah.
one last thing I'll say, which is it's great because of the contrast.
Mhm.
So, if you were a brand new player, it might not work the same way. Like I always think Dark Sun is great to come in late in an edition.
Mhm.
because everybody's established
Right.
with what D&D is normally. You know what the Sword Coast feel like. So you know what, even maybe Greyhawk, right? It's a little different, but it's got, some similarities. And then you throw in Dark Sun and everything's like, what?
Mhm.
What's going on in this world? And that creates a totally different experience that you can buy into. So it really works well when you know what the standard is.
Yeah, and then you can play around with mechanics like the rest mechanics, where it's not that you can just go to an inn and pay a gold piece and rest for 24 hour, 48, whatever, however many
Yeah.
hours. Right. With that sort of thing, it's like you need to actually work to earn yourself a long rest. And you can mess around the mechanics that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. If the world's ruled by vampires, right? And then like night is never safe or something, right? And any
Yeah.
dark place is never safe. But that also means that maybe everybody needs dark vision, or the way you operate around light must be different in the game. And so you might change those
Mm.
rules, right? So when the question says, what structure issues come up, well, you have to face those new story consequences. And that isn't a problem. That's a boon, right? It's that neat idea of, what if when you cast, you do harm to people around you? Now you've got to solve a problem because you just made the game deadlier. You made casters worse or maybe better. So you have to
Mhm.
think about that, right? Dark Sun does that with when you cast, you drain the land of life. And every edition that tackles that concept, which is a really neat story context, must figure out, well, how do I make you a little, maybe more powerful, but maybe that's also bad. So how do you make that trade-off work? And I think every edition kind of fails a little bit about that. Maybe fails more than it succeeds because that's such a hard thing to do to deal with that structural issue.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. And we will jump to Andy Demps via Patreon Discord. Andy wrote one of the Grim Hollow adventures that was running there, and people played it, seemed to love it. So thank you, Andy, for that. Given the changes in the audience for D&D and how it engages with the game, what should the goal and presentation of an organized play campaign be? It used to be that if you really wanted to be tapped into the pulse of D&D, it was happening at conventions. But post-pandemic and post what Wizards of the Coast abandoning AL, it seems like AL at conventions is aimed at a hardcore audience and maybe new players who wander in, but it's largely ignored by everyone else. So with people playing more online and so on, what could an organized play campaign look like now? I have a slight nit with with the question in that that people were tapped into the pulse of D&D by going to conventions. I don't think even the slightest close to majority of D&D players go to conventions.
Um,
I would say if you would get up to like 2% of the D&D players of the world going to a convention, that would be high.
yeah.
Uh, so let's start with that. But the rest of the question is well taken. I had several conversations about this, short conversations about this at Winter Fantasy, some official and some not. But let's take two of the questions that are embedded in here. What should the goal in the presentation for an organized play campaign be? Let's first say that it depends on the organization. Wizards of the Coast is going to have a different goal than uh, Bald Man Games, which is going to have a different goal than Ghostfire Gaming, which is going to have a different goal than Goodman Games, which is going to have a different goal than Cobalt Press. But it is true that the goal should drive the presentation. Form follows function, right? And the audience that you're going after should also drive the presentation. So let's look at three different goals
Mm.
and see what the presentation would be for that goal. One, is your goal just to provide content to established players who mostly run home games?
Mm.
Totally fine for a goal. In that case, you don't even need an organized play campaign, or it can be very, very, very loose. What's more important is the content, the adventure content that you're giving them. And you don't need to spend too much of the time worrying about the organization because they're
Right.
going to be at home. Now, maybe you'll have an event where you can come to a convention and play a special event or something. But for the most part, what's most important is the content and how it's delivered.
Mhm.
That was Oracle of War.
Mm.
right? We wanted people to be able to play that anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very
Mm-hmm.
simple, straightforward first level adventure, second level adventure, 1 to 20. Some extra content thrown in, epics, plus ways to make your own content. So there was organization, but the most important part was the content and how it's delivered.
Yeah, and I could say that, you know, from my opinion, a lot of the beauty of the early approach of AL, which was to mirror the hardback books,
Mhm.
had a real benefit to anybody running a home campaign that, hey,
Right.
buy these 8, 10, 12 adventures, and you have endless resources with which to spice up your home game of whatever hardback adventure you're running, because
Mhm.
you have endless extra encounters you can throw in, endless extra storylines and whatever's, and
Yep.
all of that can be brought in. And for a very reasonable price for that benefit of being, absolutely fitted to this storyline, right? You want to expand Tomb of Annihilation? Here, 12 adventures you can pull things out of. I mean,
Mhm.
amazing, right? And so that benefit alone is tremendous if you wanted that.
Yep. Is your goal to build a community? Then what you want to do is make the organized part of
Mhm.
organized play the most thing. How can people come together to play? What is it to take a character from a home game to a store to a convention to a game day? That's the most important thing. So in this case, you want to present and provide opportunities for community members to interact with each other and with the campaign in ways that are most important to them.
Mm.
Now, what's most important to them? That will then vary. But for the most part, then the organized becomes more important than even the content itself. You still want fun content, but
Mhm.
what's more important is if you play at the convention, this is the benefit of interacting with these folks and then taking it home to your home game. And can we find a way to make each type of play and each type of interaction important for the overall health and fun of the campaign?
Yeah, and that community angle can play off in a lot of different areas depending on how you're exactly motivated for it. So, for example, D&D Encounters at stores was creating store communities where they never existed before, which is hugely important. But also, whether it was intentional or unintentional, what it often did is a group would be playing at a table at a store and would say, I think we want to go start a home game. We really like each other. We're going to
Yep.
go leave this community and
Yeah.
form our own community. And they would ask me, is this okay? This is back when I was running an encounters program. And I said,
Yeah.
absolutely. In my eyes, it's intended. You go
Yeah.
off and do your home game, and I will fill this table. There's no problem there. I
Yeah.
will get a new table going. And so the idea that you were building these
Mhm.
communities of people who were devoted to D&D, right, in a lot of ways, less
Yeah.
than to whatever the content was super important. Or
Yeah.
DMs, right? We always say we need more DMs. Well, the encounters program is so easy to run with just a single page, for running that, 1 to 2 hours of play. You
Yeah.
could just bring in almost any DM. And we had people who'd say, like, this is really cool. Can I become a DM? Yes, you can. See you
Yeah.
next week. Let me give you a copy of this adventure, which is
Yeah.
also an incentive. And all of that created this community of people who wanted to DM.
Yeah. And what Teos said definitely happened, but it was even more dynamic than that because it wasn't just we like each other, we're leaving. It was we like each other, so we'll also play.
Yeah,
Or these two players I
sure.
really like, and they would be great with my other two friends
Hmm.
who we don't have enough players, but now we do,
Now we
and we're
do.
going to do both. Right. So it was that networking, that just putting people together who have the same interests, and it really did spread well.
And if I step out of D&D, right, think about something like Daggerheart, which we'll mention later in the show. You can say, okay, we are Darrington Press. We want people to be excited about this game and talking about it. So if we can bring them together to get excited about it and talk about it, that is going to carry out beyond that immediate community. So we're going to try to do that. And so everything we're creating is about that sort of give people things to talk about and form together and reinforce each other so that we will have more play than we would otherwise.
Right. And the final goal could be to drive people to public play, like game days, conventions, or store play. And in those instances, you need an equal focus on content and organization.
Mm.
because you want people to go to your game day, have fun with the content, but then also want to play at a convention because there's something there that they can't get at home or at a game day. And then you want them to play at home because there's something they can do at home that's not something that they could do at the game day or the convention. So you want that, as Teos was talking about earlier, people to play in multiple venues and multiple
Hmm.
spaces. So you need content, you need organization that really intensifies all of those different aspects of play.
Fantastic. What's next?
Okay, cool. Well, so the final question is, what could an organized play campaign
Hmm.
look like now? And really, it could look like practically anything. But whatever form it takes, it requires a great deal of investment, both of time and of money. Time for the company, money for the company, and time and money for even the volunteers who hold these campaigns up. The problem is it's very, very hard to see an assignable return on that investment if you're a company. You can look at sales and you can say, well, this book sold better after we made it legal for organized play, but still, it could be anything, right? Unless you are specifically giving everyone a number and every play that they do is logged in some way that you could easily access and manipulate that data, it's impossible to say, yes, we are getting our money back on this. So you have to, if you are supporting that play, go in with the understanding that this is a loss. This is a marketing expenditure, and we can't think that we're going to necessarily gain monetarily from it.
Hmm.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one of the hardest things about it is that especially if the company doesn't have clear goals like what you just talked about in part one, then the company will absolutely look at just the numerics of it and say, wait, financially, I don't see how this is to our benefit. And then they will make bizarre, if they don't cancel it outright, they'll make bizarre decisions because they can't see the return on those goals.
Right, for sure. What I can say is that the Living Greyhawk format will never, ever, 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 ever work again. Uh, we've passed the threshold of people willing to tolerate the forced scarcity that made Living Greyhawk something special. Forced scarcity. If you've listened to the show or if you played Living Greyhawk, you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
You could not play content from a particular region unless you traveled to that region that was
Physically.
assigned it in the real world.
Yeah.
So
You had
you
time
want to
units,
play,
so you
yeah,
had to at some point stop playing with your main characters. Lots of things that actually made it really cool,
yep,
but people complained about even back then. But to introduce them today would be very, very difficult. Yeah.
yeah. And one of the things that people sometimes don't understand is the the different audiences have different demands. And so if you say I'm going to run an organized play campaign and you make a ton of content, right? You put out 50 adventures that people can play. Your hardcore audience is going to be overjoyed because they can play twice a week and they'll have all the play they could ever hope for, and they'll be fun and they'll love it. The new people that you're trying to recruit will look at after the first year and say, wait, there's 50 adventures and I've got 15th level characters. Some people have 10th level characters already.
Yeah.
And I'm just coming in and I don't know any of the stories and I don't,
Yeah.
that turns that audience off. Now, if you have a slow release of content, you can keep those more casual players interested. Oh, twice a month we'll release an adventure. Oh, I play every 2 weeks. That's great. And we're waiting for the next one. Now the hardcore players are going to say, but I want to play twice a week.
Yeah.
So they play it and then they lose interest and they wander off. And the next thing that comes up draws their attention. So just that choice right there can make or break a campaign based on your audience.
Yeah. And what I've found, and my personal belief here is you must, as organizer, creator of all this content, you must decide what your approach is. And then you
Mhm.
must be intentional, right? Tie it to your goals and you have to stick to it. And you just have to let people know this is what it is and this is why. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. The worst
Mhm.
thing is when you go back and forth, right? You
Yep.
try to please everybody, you please no one. And I think that's, I'll say here, I think what's behind Andy's question and other questions we hear like it is that sort of, I don't understand who this is for right now.
Right.
And that's a good indication. If you're asking it with, good open eyes, which I know Andy is, it's a good
Mhm.
indication that we have strayed both at the company level, at the lower levels. Everybody involved is trying to please too many people. And
Mhm.
so it feels like nothing is working well because you're trying to get everybody just a little bit happy enough. And that's hard,
Yeah.
if not
Yeah.
impossible.
And so part of this goes to my next point, which is gone are the days of the 10-year long campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because exactly what Teos is saying, you put out the campaign and you please whatever audience you were trying to please, but then you try to make tweaks to capture a new audience, and you've already self-selected the audience by putting out this
Yes.
campaign, and the people who like it are going to like it. So when you change it, the people who like it are no longer going to like it, but the people who never liked it to start with are already gone and onto something else. And you can't come out and say, hey, we are now changing this campaign to please this group over here.
Right.
Because even though that's what you're doing, because then you get the people who are like, well, what about us? We've been loyal fans for the last 5 years and now you're just leaving us, which they know anyway, but you just can't come out and say it. So what I see, at least in the near future for organized play, is shorter, more self-contained sorts of campaigns where it's an intense experience for a short time. Then you reset and you do another short experience where people can binge it if they need to.
Mhm.
People can feel special with but still there be lots of opportunities for new players to come in, right? A lot of people play because they want to feel like they're a part of the campaign and their focus on it and their fandom makes them special. And it does. Undoubtedly, it does. But there also needs to be a tangible proof of that specialness,
Yep.
right? So you want invested players to feel special, but you also want new players to feel like they can come in and become special.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where short, tailored experiences, when I say short, I'm not talking about a week, right? I'm talking about a year. I'm talking about, maybe even 2 years, a cycle that is easy to follow and that can appeal to not everyone, but at least a couple different types of audiences or players.
Yeah, that's really interesting. For me, I go back to you have to start with the company and ask it what its goals are. And
Mhm.
if Wizards doesn't understand, and I'm not blaming anybody currently anywhere, at various points in D&D's history, folks at Wizards, the average people in charge, have not understood the point of organized play.
Mhm.
And then anything that is being done poorly because nobody's actually behind it. And it's a reflection of sort of, well, I guess we'll keep doing it because we've been doing it. And maybe a few people internally are fighting for it, but it's just misaligned and it's going poorly. Probably the best
Mhm.
thing to do would be to actually take a break from it for the company,
Mhm.
right? And that's really what should the company do if they don't understand organized play? Stop doing it,
Yeah.
you know, because that'll be the easiest way for you to realize what you're missing out on and will probably result in you relaunching it better. So the worst thing is just band-aiding, a program over and over again when you don't truly believe in it. You have to align your goals and say, this is actually what we really want to see out of play. So therefore,
Mhm.
we'll do that. Um, from that, you then launch your organization to support that. And the thing that's really critical that few people understand is you will alienate some groups. And
Mhm.
that's okay. It's inevitable. You have to decide what your audience is and go after just that audience. You can make it so that, say you're not really making it for home play. Some groups will take it and use it at home play. But don't
Mhm.
get tricked into trying to then release a thing for home play here and there. And because you'll just dilute away from your effort, because whatever your focus is will take a tremendous amount of work and money. And so if you start diluting from what the actual need is, you'll create a worse experience for everybody. So you just have to keep that focus, keep doing that thing. And my major recommendation is, and every few years, you must blow it all away.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you're telling all the hardcore people that they are in charge, whether they're DMs or organizers or whatever, when they're not, and shouldn't be, no matter how great they are, right? I'm not saying they're not great, they are, but it's not how it works. And so you must be able to every now and then destroy it all and build it back up based on the lessons you've learned, maybe with a slightly different focus and adjustment of goals. When you see AL having gone as long as it has, it's because 5th edition has gone as long as it has, which is off the charts unimaginable. But we haven't achieved that success with organized play. So it's actually shocking AL existed as long as it has, right? But it's beyond where it should have existed in so many ways. And it has tweaked itself at various points, but you can't make up for the actual need to just blow it all away and build it new, aligned to your current goals.
For absolutely sure. All right. So thank you. We have many more questions, but we need to get to our news and commentary. Yeah. So we're going to start there with the new adventure, Hold Back the Dead, coming out on D&D Beyond only. Teos, what can you tell us about Hold Back the Dead?
Yeah, I've read over this. The lead designer was Ron Lundeen. We had some fun conversations at Winter Fantasy about this, and folks who maybe have some knowledge just kind of smiled at me when I said, this feels like a project that was meant to be a convention epic featuring multiple tables doing things. And at some point, someone changed their mind to have it be something else. In fact, we're told it is a part of the year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary. And I just, look at my calendar or watch and go, really? Okay. So, better late than never. But okay, so let's talk about what this is and what could be. The selling point, Shawn, is deep in the Western Heartlands, an evil red wizard conspires to overtake the land, face hordes of deadly monsters, and defend a mighty fortress from ruin in this challenging single-session adventure.
Okay. So I haven't looked at it completely, but it looks like we have more of the D&D cartoon pre-gens. And we have a faction, I believe, called the Lords Alliance, which was a 2014 thing, still hanging around, apparently.
Inexplicably there.
And it looks like it focuses on the defenses of Iron Spine Keep being attacked by the forces of Zaz Tam. The premise is that Tam can't allow the Sword Coast allies to control the keep.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It is. And to me, everything about what you've just said is completely bizarre, right? Like, okay, the D&D cartoon pre-gens. When the Uni adventure came out, that made perfect sense because it was a D&D cartoon type adventure. Here it just feels like, I don't know, it's D&D 50th anniversary. Let's chuck in the same pre-gens. Then we don't have to make new ones, which, okay, fine. The Lord's Alliance. I'm sorry, what? Why? And then we're told that Zastam is attacking a keep because he has to prevent these Sword Coast allies from doing stuff. To which I say, really? Are the Red Wizards in full warfare mode against the Sword Coast and taking over openly? That does not fit anything I understand about where we are in the Forgotten Realms. It certainly doesn't mirror the Neverwinter story in the movie. It just, okay. And we get ideas for playing this adventure in other settings, and there's nothing that would address the cities that are described in this adventure or Lord's Alliance or anything like that. You just get some minor how to shove it into Dragonlance, Eberron, and Greyhawk.
So is it like a tower defense sort of thing where players are defending a part of the wall and choosing?
Yes, and it has, and I may sound a little negative about this. Look, I've played this. It is fun. You will have fun if you lean into what it offers. You will have a good time playing this. The players arrive for a variety of reasons, and you are told which city do you want to help: Baldur's Gate, Mithril Hall, Neverwinter, Silvery Moon, or Waterdeep. And it's unclear how you're making that choice or why. Each city has a different siege weapon, but it's unclear whether you should see that as players or not. But Okay, so you choose whatever, and now you're given a section of the map, to which I say, you created this enormous map. It's unnecessary. just You just needed a map of the area you're defending. Again, I suspect this was a much larger project that shrank down. And each of the siege weapons is quite different. Some of them are way better at defending against the type of attack it is, but I don't know why the players would be able to figure that out. And there are lots of 2024 changes, like the utilize action to raise or lower a rope ladder. The siege weapons have things like pulling a lever of the clockwork trebuchet requires the utilize action. Then a creature can take the trebuchet stone action. So, that's I think good for DMs and others, creators who want to see kind of how this works. This is a great adventure that'll show you that kind of language that Wizards is expecting. You've got waves of siege weapon attacks, then there's a sort of surprise, and then a final boss fight. It's all fine, perfectly fun for an evening of play. Mm-hmm. To me, this just feels like an indication of a developmental nightmare might be too strong, but a shift in priorities that happened across the development of this adventure. And I can only imagine how great it would have been if the start goal had been like whatever the end ended up being.
Gotcha. Yeah, normally I'm like, I don't care about lore. Yeah, I'll just hand wave that you're working with whoever. But in the next segment, I will go back on my I don't care about lore statement. So hold me to it. All right. Well, I haven't had a chance to read it through, so I will make sure I check it out and maybe have some more commentary at some point. But next, we need to talk about Netflix, because friend of the show, Dave Clark, our resident expert on Honor Among Thieves, has noted that the movie finally drops out of being in the top 10 streaming lists, but it will be showing up on the US Netflix coming soon. Soon being February 26th, we will be able to watch Honor Among Thieves in the US on Netflix. So we'll see if it jumps back up when it hits Netflix.
Yeah.
Not February, but May is the official release date for the new role-playing game Dragonheart. The press release says, so what did I say? Dragonheart?
Yeah.
Daggerheart. I get them confused.
Yep.
Daggerheart, officially releasing on May 20th, 2025 in Critical Role shops in the US, Canada, the UK, European Union, and Australia, Darrington Press guild stores, and other friendly local gaming stores. Plus, there will be a digital version of the game on Demiplane and on Drive-Thru RPG. Anything else about Daggerheart that you wanted to note from this release?
Yeah, June 3rd, it'll be sort of everywhere. We talked about that distribution deal that we discussed last time, so we should be able to see this in various places. Will it get as far as Target and those kinds of stores? We'll see how that works, but they've got that distribution deal, so maybe. But if your store doesn't have it May 20th, then June 3rd, you should be able to find it where you normally get RPGs. They talk about the 150,000 plus open beta playtesters they had. They say that really helped change the play of Daggerheart to be, quote, a more immersive and player-focused experience, one that truly reflects the creativity and input of the community to help build it all. Darrington Press says there will also be upcoming play opportunities at various conventions too, so you could go to a convention, you'll find Daggerheart being, I think, what they're saying is officially organized by Darrington Press, which would be cool to see. Nice. And so, yeah, pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing how this ended up. We reviewed it on the show, and I'm curious. Even before this time, they've revealed some sort of surprises as to things they changed in the game after the playtest ended. So I'm curious kind of how that last round of changes went.
Yeah, we go from creating a new game to creating worlds. Wizards of the Coast is hiring a senior narrative world-building designer for the D&D franchise. Pay rate between $94.7 and $182,000 a year. What do we know about this? Well, we know you'll be creating exciting and inspirational new settings and developing existing ones. The settings you create will become part of the ever-expanding multiverse, Working closely with others in our creative team, you will give life to legendary characters, intertwine the narratives of D&D stories across various platforms, and provide new content for internal and external partners to play with across all expressions of D&D. We need a world builder with strong writing skills, a collaborative spirit, and a focused imagination.
Mm.
You popped this in there. I didn't even know this was a thing. This is literally what I am talking about in my world building class, about creating something to use across various media, to interact with partners. And oh, it's amazing. I can't wait to show this to my class.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean it's exciting, right? This must come from Chris Perkins' efforts in his new position. So maybe you're working for him or as part of a team aligned with his. I don't know. It's really neat. There's a whole, what you'll do, what you'll bring section. They do want 5+ years experience in doing this type of thing and proven track record stuff. So they're looking for a strong candidate. But they want you to help build all these types of worlds, factions, storylines, franchise level characters. It sounds really cool. And on our Discord, MT Black asked this question when this was being discussed on our Discord today. What sort of new world should Wizards of the Coast create? And it's really neat to contemplate, what would we want? What would we think that should be created out of this process? Do you have any thoughts there, Shawn?
What world should you create depends on what your plans are. Right? I mean, if are you creating a new video game? Well, that's going to lean you. Are you using 5e rules for that video game? Do you want to have the full range of media from comic books to fiction to TTRPGs to television shows to right? What's going to be the base
Yeah.
of this, and from building out from there, you will end up with similar elements, but the way you build those are going to be different.
Yeah, my thought was I couldn't help but think of, sort of the last time this was really being thrown around was around the creation of what later ended up being Eberron. And
Right.
that was a point in time when they really sort of saw the game as Forgotten Realms and we need something else.
Mhm.
Because the other words are sort of semi-retired or they'll have minimal applications. And in some ways, that is also the 5th edition story that, yeah, Spelljammer comes out, but it's not something that's evergreen, right? We may get a periodic thing here and there. Same thing with Planescape or any of these Dragonlance and these other worlds. They're not being retired, but they're just not a continual focus. And so there is an interesting question. If you're creating a new world, where do you want to fit in contrast to, say, the Forgotten Realms? What's the function of it from a story perspective, from a play perspective, from a product perspective, right? Is this a story, a world where you want to release 3 products a year?
Mm-hmm.
And how's that even fitting into Forgotten Realms releases? Or so what kind of, right? Like if you were, let's say Dark Sun didn't exist, but to tie into a previous listener question, we were to come up with Dark Sun, would that be a good fit? And it might not, right? Because it's such a contrasting place. It's a really fascinating question. I'm curious what they want from this and how they would fit it into their yearly release. And you could argue maybe it should be something that's for an entirely different audience, right? Yeah. Like the way Kobold Press is creating that world that's sort of, soft, cuddly things, feel good type stuff. That's a great thing that doesn't contrast with everything else you're doing. And so even if it's not for me, it's really nice how it can easily be a secondary audience or whatever. And so maybe the answer is something like that. I don't know, right? I'm really curious to see where this goes.
Yeah, I could talk about this forever, but we got one more bit of news we're going to get to, which is the free D&D rules have been updated with over 150 of the 2025 Monster Manual monsters. I got my Monster Manual in the mail this weekend, and it is out there if you got the early release on D&D Beyond digitally or with the book. So we are now seeing those monsters in the new rules. They can be found on D&D Beyond. 3 sections now mirror the core books, the 3 core books. Note that this is not the SRD, right? The SRD is not yet released. These are just the free rules that you can download, access, and play without needing to buy the books. SRD is still in the wind. We're still waiting to see if and when it will come out. And there are many people, myself included, waiting for that so I can update some of the stuff coming up for Grim Hollow,
Yeah.
for Strange Hollow, for a bunch of projects. So I'll
Yeah.
keep my finger on this pulse as we go forward. And we'll hit one thing in our creator corner this week. We are going to talk about Tangled in Shrouds, an adventure for Pirate Borg. It's a zine adventure by Snapback Game Studios with work by Gregory Hines, who ran this adventure at Winter Fantasy. The adventure has various ways to customize and change it before and during play. You can choose a British, French, or Spanish antagonist set loose on the high seas to chase where your crew must choose between the lesser of two evils at every turn. What do you know about this adventure, Teos?
Yeah, so I got to play it. It was great. It was really fun. I think Zach Goins may be involved in it as well. There are fun sea battles. I enjoyed kind of our ship deciding whether to try to broadside this enemy vessel or run away or what. And the various interactions we had were excellent. It's super fun. So if you want to try Pirate Borg or if you want a new adventure for it, highly recommend it. It also is available as part of a bundle in the very same Kickstarter, which also adds a book on relics for the 6 Pirate Borg factions and an adventure called The Repentant Expanded, which I think I also played with Zach Goins running it yesterday morning. And that one was also very cool, very fun, involves some very dark choices and concepts. And so you can get the just Tangled in Shrouds for just $7 digitally, or the bundle for only $12. Print starts at a very reasonable $20. So check it out on Kickstarter.com. Called Tangled in Shrouds, and it's ending soon. It ends on February 19th. So whenever you've listened to this, you probably just have a couple days to click on it and go for it.
Awesome.